All right, we're continuing today with topic 3, and topic 3 is in our Unit 3A packet. We're going to talk today about 4 different types of slope. The types are positive and negative, zero, and undefined. So first we're going to start with a negative slope. The key with negative slopes is that the rise and the run have opposite symbols. One is positive and one is negative. A negative slope is easy to identify if you think about if you were walking on this line. Would you be going uphill or downhill? In this slope, we are definitely going downhill. So that's a negative slope. So now let's actually find the slope pattern. From one point to the other, we go down 2 and then right 5. So my slope pattern with arrows is down 2, right 5. And now we have to think about what that means without the arrows. A down arrow on the y-axis indicates a negative number. Down is negative. So we have negative 2. And then a right arrow indicates a positive number. So that's positive 5. And we don't have to write the positive symbol. We know that it's positive 5. So here's our answer. This is a negative slope. And it's negative because one of the rise is negative, the run is positive. We usually write a negative slope like this. I'm going to give you some options. You either have a negative in the numerator, negative change in y over positive change in x, or it can be written with a positive change in y and a negative change in x, or it can be written with a negative out front and a change in y over a change in x. So these are the 3 ways that you will see your slope written when it's negative. All right, the next one is a positive slope, and positive slope is if we put a person on this graph, they are going uphill. See the difference? All right, so if we are going uphill, our slope is going to be up, and if you count the units, it looks like 2, right 1. So with arrows, we are going to write up 2, right 1. And an up arrow on the y-axis represents a positive 2. A right arrow represents a positive 1. So if you notice, both of our symbols, both of our rise and our run have the same symbols, positive and positive. And positive slopes always have the same sign. That can actually mean both positive or both negative. We usually write a positive slope like this, plain old change in y over change in x. They both have the same sign. All right, the next slope that we are going to talk about is what we call a zero slope. If something has zero slope, it means that it's a horizontal line. I want you to think about if you were walking on this graph. We've talked about uphill and downhill. On this graph, it is flat. There is 0 hill. You are walking on a flat surface. All right, so if you try to find a slope pattern here, it's kind of hard. Pick any 2 points on this graph. You'll notice that there is no up or down movement. It's flat. So there is no movement up or down, 0 movement. And the rise or the run here, it goes forever in both directions. So the rise or the run here, I'm just going to write is any number. If you have 0 divided by any number, your slope is always 0. So horizontal lines have a slope of 0. All right, next we have an undefined line. So again, if you were trying to walk along this line, it's impossible. You can't walk up a wall unless you're like Spider-Man or something. You can't walk up this wall. It's impossible to walk up. So the slope pattern here, rise over run, our rise, if you notice, it goes up forever. It always goes up. So our rise is any number. And there is no movement to the left or the right. No movement. So our run is 0. If you have any number and you divide it by 0, your answer is actually undefined. If you try to do any number divided by 0, that answer doesn't work. It's undefined. You cannot divide by 0. 0 cannot be in the denominator. And I like to think about, remember we said that if you were a person, it's impossible to scale this wall. You can't walk up and down this wall. So I like to relate that vertical lines are impossible to walk up, so they have an undefined slope. Whereas horizontal lines, they're flat. You can walk straight across. So they have 0 hills, they have a 0 slope. So 0 slope impossible or undefined slope. Alright, we're going to do a couple examples here. We're going to find slope using stack and subtract. Then we're going to determine what type of slope this is. So first we're going to do stack and subtract with these 2 points. 2, 5, and I'm actually going to plot them. 2, 5, and 1, -3. And I can connect them. You can connect them if you want. Before I even start, think about if you're a person walking on this graph. You guys are going uphill. So we should expect a positive slope. Alright, so let's do stack and subtract and check. I'm going to put 2, 5 on top. It doesn't really matter. 2, 5, 1, -3. And now we're going to subtract. We are doing 5 minus -3, which actually turns into 5 plus 3, which is 8. And then I'm going to do 2 minus 1, which is positive 1. Next, remember, when we find slope, we have to write it as a fraction. So our slope is change in y over change in x, the fraction. Our y value is 8. Our x value is 1. So our slope is 8 over 1. If we reduce 8 over 1, it's actually just the number 8. But you could write either of these and they're both correct. Our slope type here, look, our signs are the same, positive and positive, which means our slope is positive. Alright, our next example, we're going to do a different 2 points, 3, 0, and 3, 5. So let me plot 3, 0, and 3, 5. 3, 0, and 3, 5, and connect them. Oops. Alright, and you guys notice that this is a vertical line. Remember, if you were a person, this is impossible to walk up and down. Let's stack and subtract and see what happens. So we have 3, 0, and we have 3, 5. I'm going to do 0 minus 5. I get -5. And 3 minus 3, which is 0. Next we stack and subtract. Change in y over change in x. I get -5 divided by 0. -5 divided by 0 is an undefined number. So our slope type is undefined. We have a vertical line. Alright, example 3, we have 2 points 0, 1 and 2, 1. And I'm going to start off by plotting those just to get a visual. 0, 1, 2, 1. If I connect those, and if you imagine walking along this makes a flat line. So hopefully we will get a 0 slope. That's the goal. So let's stack these points, 2, 1, and 0, 1. And let's do this subtraction. 1 minus 1 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. And now we write our answer as a fraction. Our fraction is change in y over change in x. Our y difference is 0. Our x difference is 2. 0 divided by 2, 0 divided by any number, is just 0. So our slope type is 0 slope. And I'm just going to write here that this is a horizontal line that gets you 0 slope. Alright, on to our last example. In our last example here are 2 points. 2, -1. So I'm going to plot 2, -1, and 3, -4. I'm going to connect those. And now let's think about if you were walking along this graph. Do you guys notice that this graph goes downhill? So hopefully we will be getting a negative slope when we work through this problem. So I'm going to pick a point to go on top. I'm going to pick 3, -4, and stack it on top of 2, -1, and subtract -4 minus -1. -4 minus -1 turns into -4 plus 1, which is -3. And then over here I do 3 minus 2, which is positive 1. We write our answer as a fraction. Change in y over change in x is -3 over 1. Now this is my final answer, but it says to reduce. You can actually reduce this if you want to just -3. So our slope type, in this case, the numerator and the denominator, rise and the run, have opposite symbols. That means that we have a negative slope. Alright, you guys can move on to your homework. We're on either homework 3 or 4 in the 3A packet, so you can do that to practice. Good luck.